Good day, everyone. My name is Mariam. So, to benefit or not to benefit the economy, that is the question. When people hear the word immigrants, they think of people who take jobs, who don't pay taxes, and who increase the crime rate of their host country. But this is not the case. Immigrants in Canada are taking Canada by storm. In fact, with the base number of immigrants rising from 260,000 in 2016 to 300,000 in 2017. But is this a good thing? You see, immigrants help meet labor market needs, yet they're unemployed. They boost GDP, yet they raise domestic worker unemployment. They come with so much qualifications, yet they're much more underemployed. Derek Thompson, writer of economics, discusses in his article, A World Without Work, the social negatives of unemployment, stating that depression, spousal abuse, and suicide all became more prevalent. However, Richard Nixon, the 37th U.S. president, stated in his 1971 Labor Day speech that this was he stated the economic positives of unemployment, stating it was simply competition, and competition is what made the American working man unique in the world. So realizing this contrasting unemployment connection between these sources, realizing and understanding that there is a contrasting impact of immigrants in Canada, this resulted in questioning to what extent are immigrants actually beneficial to the Canadian economy, given the unemployment and the associated negative attitudes. So I conducted an economic and social analysis to answer this. So let's start with the positives of increasing immigrants. The Human Resources and Skills Development Canada discovered in their 2011 study that raising the number of high-skilled immigrants would boost productive capacity and boost labor productivity. But that's not all. Canada will also really need immigrants to help meet labor market needs because they are having a slow and aging population. But on the other hand, this means that immigrants will be filling more jobs and increasing competition for domestic workers. See, this is proven by Michelle Downey in her 2010 report on immigrants as innovators, in which she said that immigrants hold more elite research positions at Canadian universities per capita than non-immigrants. Now, this competition isn't completely detrimental to Canada because Downey later on reveals that with increased competition comes more innovation and groundbreaking research. So now that we've seen how immigrants affect Canada's economy, how does Canada's economy affect immigrants? Well, the Institute for Work and Health states that immigrants are 40% more likely to be underemployed than Canadian natives. This is confirmed by a study conducted by multiple Canadian universities like McMaster University and the University of Toronto, in which they said that participants from teaching and healthcare professions were working as personal support workers or even daycare assistants. However, this source may not be an accurate representation of all immigrants in Canada because their results were cutting from just 30 interviews. But we cannot ignore the fact that immigrants earn less than Canadian natives. Then I thought, should we really be concerned with this? Because Statistics Canada revealed that their conditions and their earnings tend to improve with time spent in Canada. But so if this occurs, why do longer-term immigrants still have a low economic status? Well, this is because these improvements in earnings could take a decade to occur. Like, as you can see, the low income rate of immigrants only comes remotely close to Canadian born after spending about 10 years in Canada. So in the midst of all this immigration talk, how exactly does Canada select their immigrants? Well, they use a point selection system, ranking immigrants on language and other skills, of which those scoring over 67 out of 100 points may qualify to immigrate to Canada. But the setback of this system is that it emphasizes more on their education and less on the occupational demand. In fact, Canada's Immigration Minister John McCallum said that students are the best candidates for Canadian citizenship. This is why immigrants are more likely to be university educated than Canadians, and why immigrants hold about half, yes, 50% of all STEM university degrees in Canada, according to Statistics Canada. So why are immigrants faced with higher unemployment and underemployment despite their qualifications? Some say it is because of their lack of developed soft skills. In her immigrant-focused study, Izumi Sakamoto, PhD Associate Professor of Social Work and Social Psychology, interviewed immigrants that were teachers, and they would go to interviews thinking that they would be asked about science questions or math questions because they're a science or math teacher, but they don't do that. They ask about their soft skills. In fact, Kevin Lamoureux, a parliamentary secretary of Canada, once said that immigrants better the social fabric of communities. But Canada begs to differ. You see, a 2017 poll taken by the Angus Reid Institute showed that 41% of Canadians surveyed say the total refugee amount the government is taking in is too high. This can also explain the employer discrimination that also has a role in their unemployment. Now, Philip Oripios, a professor of economics at the University of Toronto, conducted an interesting study in which thousands of identical resumes were sent with English, Chinese, Pakistani, and non-ethnic names, and the results were quite interesting. He saw that resumes with English-sounding names were 39% more likely to receive callbacks than resumes with Indian, Pakistani, or even Chinese names. Now, I don't need to say what that means for immigrants. But why exactly is there resistance? Some say that this is because the Canadian population fails to realize the benefits of increased competition. But we cannot ignore the inherent prejudice as well. So ultimately, while immigrants benefit Canada's population and diversity, they increase competition and job shortages, thereby leading to prejudice, which adds to the unemployment, of which people say is due to a lack of developed soft skills. So, to benefit or not to benefit the economy, that is the question. Well, this is the answer. To benefit. You see, through the social and economic lens, it can be deduced that immigrants are beneficial to Canada in terms of increased productivity, increased population growth, increased multiculturalism, despite the increased competition. So, with that established, we must address the high unemployment and underemployment caused by the discrimination faced, which can be Canada's fault, and the lack of soft skills, which some may say is the immigrants' fault. So my first solution to this would be a final interview. This involves the Canadian government adding a final interview stage to the immigration process in which their soft skills are assessed. So this would ensure their adaptability and lessen the unemployment, as it will be certain how well they will interact with others, and employers will no longer be able to give lack of soft skills as an excuse for their unemployment. But the main limitations with this solution will be feasibility in terms of how much will it cost. Would there even be a supply of interviewers to assess these soft skills? And whether this elongation of the immigration process will make Canada seem less attractive to immigrants. But it does not address the discrimination faced. Which brings me to my second solution, training videos. Now, currently, Canada's action plan against racism has nothing on discrimination in the workplace. To solve this, the Canadian government can mandate annual training videos on prejudice, especially during the hiring process, to address these issues. Now, this will be more feasible as the Ontario government already mandates annual workplace harassment training videos. But this comes with a concern on whether viewers would truly accept the training videos or just see it as some long, boring government video. But it does not even address the lack of soft skills. So at this point, I'm very sure you must be thinking, oh no, what can we do to solve this problem? Well, have no fear, because we could simply add the first solution and the second solution together. So this is because one addresses issues unaddressed by the other. Now, while this doesn't still guarantee total viewer acceptance, it still betters the economic stance of the immigrants in terms of their unemployment and their underemployment. In short, this solution will not only allow Canada to continue to benefit from immigrants, but for immigrants to benefit from Canada. Thank you very much.
What information did you need that you weren't able to find or locate, and how did you go about finding that information?
So the Michelle Downey report talked about how immigrants were increasing competition for jobs, and I wanted to find out specific graphs or statistics on how exactly do they increase this competition for jobs, because it seemed like just a claim at first. So I couldn't exactly really find specific graphs, but I could find studies like her study in which she saw that immigrants held more elite research positions at Canadian universities. And one could say that that shows an example of how immigrants are increasing competition for jobs in that area. So I used that to sort of prove that claim, if that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
And Mariam, did you have any additional questions emerge from your research? And if so, why are they important?
So the Institute for Work and Health discussed one issue about immigrants. They said that immigrants were more likely to face to face healthcare and workplace injuries. And I thought that that was important in sort of just showing the low economic stance of immigrants, and that allowed me to further my research to basically ask, okay, what else is contributing to the economic stance? So it can't just be the health. It can't just be the conditions. Maybe there's something that they're doing as well, because everything can't necessarily be Canada's fault. There may be something else that they're doing. So that question allowed me to ask other questions, which all in all contributed to my final research question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I just unplug?